The galaxy was endless, filled with stars brighter than imagination. Yet for some, that endless beauty was a prison. Among the countless empires and races, one people had lost their place. They were called the Ryla, insectoid in form but gentle in spirit, known once for their knowledge of medicine and their songs that echoed like silver bells. They were not conquerors. They were not warriors. They were builders, healers, and dreamers. For centuries they traveled between worlds, welcomed as allies in the great coalition of species. But when war came, when resources grew scarce, kindness was forgotten. The Ryla had no great fleets, no mighty armies. They could not fight as others did. Slowly, whispers began to rise among their allies. They were weak. They were useless. They were a burden, taking but unable to give. In secret meetings and private councils, powerful leaders decided their fate. It began with small things: closed trade routes, denied permits, whispered insults. But it grew, step by step, until the day the coalition cast its decision like a shadow across their world. The Ryla were banished. One by one, every border shut. Their colonies were forced to abandon trade, their merchants turned away at ports, their ships fired upon if they strayed too near. The Ryla who once laughed under foreign suns were left wandering the cold dark, their fleets drifting without a home. Their children cried from hunger. Their sick went untreated. Entire ships fell silent as life support failed, drifting like tombs in the void. Mothers pressed their chitinous brows against their young, whispering comfort they did not believe. The elders who once sang songs of hope now sang only mourning songs, their voices breaking with grief. The galaxy did not care. Empires looked away. Neighbors shut their doors. Some even celebrated, for fewer mouths to feed meant more for themselves. In great halls of marble and crystal, leaders spoke proudly of survival of the strong while the Ryla starved in silence. But still they tried. They sent messages. They begged. They pleaded. We will work. We will share. We will serve. Just let us live. Their signals echoed through the stars, and yet the replies were the same. Stay away. Do not enter our space. You are not welcome. Some messages carried even harsher words. If you come, we will destroy you. The Ryla were not dangerous. They had never conquered, never enslaved, and yet they were treated as if they were plague. One elder said with shaking voice, "We are not hated for what we have done. We are hated for what we lack." The Ryla fleets grew thinner. Supplies dwindled. The stars grew colder. Within their cramped ships, the walls echoed with despair. They were a people with no soil, no sky, no friends. They had only each other and the memories of better days. Still, they clung to life. Still, they searched for a world that might hear them. And so when the council gathered one last time, their voices heavy with sorrow, they made a final choice. They would send one last transmission, not to an empire, not to a mighty fleet, not to those who had spat upon their suffering. They would send their cry into the dark even if no one listened. The message was simple. We are the Ryla. We are lost. We are hungry. We have nowhere left. If you will not help us, no one will. This is our final cry into the dark. When the message was sent, the elders bowed their heads. Some wept. Others remained silent, their eyes fixed on the cold stars. They did not believe an answer would come. After all, none ever had. But deep inside their hearts, in a place even despair could not kill, a small spark remained. A hope so faint it could barely be felt. The hope that someone out there, somewhere in the endless void, would hear, that someone would care. The journey to Earth was long, but it was different from all the wandering before. This time, the Ryla were not drifting without purpose. They had coordinates, they had a direction, and most importantly, they had a promise that someone out there had heard them. Even so, fear traveled with them. As the fleet cut through the void, many whispered doubts. Could humans truly mean what they said? Were they not another empire waiting to use the Ryla and then discard them? Hadn't every other race done the same? On the largest ship, Elder Jalir watched the younger ones repair the damaged hulls. He listened to their songs as they worked, tentative, broken songs that had not been sung for years. Do you hear it? He asked Savar, the healer who stood beside him. That is the sound of hope returning, even if it is fragile. Savar smiled softly. It is hope that keeps us alive, Elder. Without it, we would already be gone. Life inside the ships remained hard. Rations were still small. The weak still suffered. But now every bite of food, every drop of water was taken with the thought, hold on. Just a little longer. We are going somewhere. As weeks passed, human transmissions continued to reach them. Messages full of guidance, comfort, and even humor. The humans spoke like no other species. They did not demand proof of loyalty. They did not ask for labor in advance. They spoke simply, like neighbors welcoming strangers into their homes. One message made the children laugh. A human captain spoke directly into the feed, holding up a loaf of bread. "Don't worry," he said, smiling. "We've got food. And yes, we checked. We can make it taste good for you, even if it burns our tongues." The Ryla children giggled at his strange gestures and warm tone. For the first time, they felt like someone cared enough to ease their fear. But the galaxy had not gone blind. As the Ryla fleet pushed toward Sol, the other empires noticed. Spies and satellites reported their path. Whispers filled the halls of alien councils. The humans have opened their doors to the exiles. They are taking in the unwanted. Some called it foolishness. Others called it rebellion. A few even called it dangerous. To offer safety to those banished was to question the judgment of the galaxy's mighty powers. Soon, warnings began arriving. Not to the Ryla, but to the humans. "Send them away or suffer the consequences," threatened the Veltari. "Their weakness will poison you," hissed the Dominion. "Shelter them and you will share their fate." The humans did not bend. Their reply was short and sharp. "We make our own choices. Your threats mean nothing." The Ryla could not believe it. No one had ever defended them. No one had ever risked angering the galaxy for their sake. In the quiet corners of their ships, families whispered prayers of gratitude to a people they had not yet met. Finally, after months of travel, the Ryla saw it, the pale blue planet, shining like a jewel against the black Earth. Their scanners picked up countless satellites, stations, and ships surrounding it. But instead of threats, they received greetings. "Welcome, Ryla fleet. We've been waiting for you." Tears filled their eyes. They had arrived. As the first transport ship descended through the atmosphere, the Ryla pressed against the viewing windows. Clouds parted, revealing oceans vast as worlds, forests green as emerald, and cities alive with light. It was unlike anything they had seen. Their hearts raced, their antennae trembling with awe. When the landing doors opened, the Ryla braced themselves for soldiers, for interrogations, for suspicion. That was all they had ever known. Instead, they found something entirely different. Humans stood waiting on the landing grounds, not with weapons, but with open hands. Some carried blankets, others carried food. Many simply smiled. Children peeked from behind their parents, curious and unafraid. Doctors rushed forward not to examine with cold instruments, but to help the sick and weary. The Ryla were stunned. One child hid behind her mother, whispering, "They are not angry. They are happy to see us." That day, the Ryla learned something the galaxy had never taught them. Not every door closed in the face of the weak. Not every hand pushed away. Some hands reached out and pulled you back to your feet. And on Earth, the Ryla would discover what it meant to be welcomed, truly welcomed. The Ryla's first days on Earth were filled with awe and confusion. They had expected suspicion, perhaps long interrogations or guarded camps, but instead they were given open skies and fresh air. They were offered food, shelter, and kindness. Human children played near them without fear, tugging curiously at their wings and clicking their tongues to mimic Ryla songs. For the first time in many years, the exiles felt alive again. But beyond Earth's atmosphere, the galaxy was watching, and the galaxy did not approve. Within weeks, messages of scorn and warning began flooding into human space. The Veltari accused humanity of harboring parasites. The Dominion declared the act a betrayal of galactic unity. Other empires scoffed, calling humans naive and reckless. Their diplomats sent harsh words to Earth. "Send them away. If you shelter them, you will be dragged down with them." In the great chambers of alien councils, voices rose in anger. "The Ryla were cast out for a reason," they hissed. "To help them is to stand against the judgment of the galaxy." But Earth did not bow. Humanity had grown used to being underestimated, called reckless, dangerous, unpredictable. They had been labeled a death world race, too stubborn to bend, too wild to control. So when the galaxy demanded that they turn away the Ryla, humanity answered with words sharp as steel. A transmission was sent back, broadcast openly so every empire could hear. The human envoy, a woman with calm eyes, spoke clearly. "The Ryla asked for help. We gave it. If you think compassion is weakness, then you have forgotten what strength truly is. We will not turn them away, not now, not ever. The galaxy scoffed at such defiance. Some threatened embargo, others whispered of war. Yet humanity did not falter. On Earth, the Ryla trembled when they heard the news. They feared that humanity would grow tired of the pressure, that they would be abandoned once again. But the opposite happened. Humans gathered in streets holding banners with Ryla symbols painted alongside Earth's flag. Volunteers arrived in greater numbers to help build new homes for the refugees. Children held up signs in shaky handwriting. Ryla are family now. Elder Jalir, watching these scenes, felt his old heart ache with emotion. They do not see us as a burden, he whispered. They see us as people. His words spread through the Ryla camps, and for the first time, their morning songs turned into songs of gratitude. Yet the galaxy's scorn grew louder. Alien broadcasts spread lies, calling the Ryla diseased, dangerous, unworthy of survival. Some ships even tried to block human trade routes, hoping to starve Earth into compliance. But every time human vessels broke through, and when asked why they risked so much, human captains only laughed, because it's the right thing to do. To the Ryla, it was more than simple kindness, it was defiance, a shield raised against the cruelty of the stars. No one had ever fought for them before. No one had ever stood between them and the galaxy's hatred. Savar, the healer, once stood before a crowd of both humans and Ryla in a small Earth city. She spoke in a trembling voice. We were told we were worthless. We believed it because no one ever said otherwise. But you, humans, you tell us we matter. You do not just feed us, you give us back our dignity. And for that, we will never forget. The crowd roared with applause, and many humans wiped tears from their eyes. And so the bond between the two peoples grew deeper. The more the galaxy condemned them, the closer humanity and the Ryla stood together. Their unity was not built on power, nor fear, nor trade, but on compassion, the rarest force in the stars. And though the galaxy sneered, it could not erase the truth. A new story had begun. A story of two peoples, one banished, one underestimated, who had found strength not in cruelty but in kindness. The first true meal on Earth was something the Ryla would never forget. They had survived on scraps for so long, dry rations, recycled water, tasteless paste pressed into blocks. But here in a hall lit with warm lights, humans placed steaming dishes before them. The air was filled with strange spices, sharp and sweet, scents that made their antennae twitch. At first, the Ryla hesitated. They remembered all the warnings the galaxy had hurled at them, that they were unwanted, filthy, unfit to share a table. Yet the humans only smiled and waited. One small human girl climbed onto a chair, pushed a bowl forward, and said softly, "Eat. It's for you." An elder took the first bite. The taste was strange, fiery on the tongue, but it filled the stomach with warmth. Tears welled in his eyes as he nodded. "It is good," he whispered. The room erupted with movement. The starving finally ate until their plates were empty, and still more food came. For the first time in years, their children laughed between bites, their bellies full. The meal was not just food, it was dignity returned. After that day, life began to change. Human doctors worked side by side with Ryla healers, treating old wounds and sicknesses that had gone ignored for too long. Clinics were built near the landing zones, not guarded prisons but open places of care. Savar, the healer, stood in awe as human nurses bent low to comfort frightened Ryla children. "They do not treat us as patients to be managed," she whispered to Jalir. "They treat us as family." Soon homes rose from the soil, not barracks or temporary shelters, but real houses built with both human stone and Ryla designs. The two peoples worked together, hands and claws moving in rhythm, building streets that echoed with life. Children of both species played together in the half-finished roads, chasing each other in circles, their laughter ringing against the walls. But the most powerful moment came with music. The Ryla had almost forgotten their songs. For so long, their voices had only carried grief. Yet one evening, in a small Earth square, a group of humans brought instruments. They began to play, deep strings, high flutes, steady drums. Tentatively, a Ryla child joined in, her voice trembling at first, then rising higher. One by one, others followed. Soon the square was filled with a chorus of sound, human melodies and Ryla songs weaving together, blending into something new. People stopped to listen. Some cried, others danced, It was no longer the music of exiles or strangers. It was the music of a shared future. Still, the shadow of fear lingered. The galaxy's scorn had not disappeared. News broadcasts whispered of sanctions, blockades, even war. The Ryla worried that humanity would eventually decide it was too costly to keep them. But every time doubt grew, humanity answered with action. Volunteers kept coming. Food kept arriving. Homes kept rising. One evening, Elder Jalir stood on a hill overlooking the growing settlement. The lights below glowed golden against the dark human and Ryla families walking side by side. His voice cracked as he whispered, "We were told we were cursed, yet here they treat us as blessed." Savar stood beside him, her eyes shining. "We were banished by the galaxy," she said, "but on this world we have been welcomed. And that is stronger than all their rejection." That night the Ryla sang not of sorrow but of gratitude. Their voices rose into the Earth's night sky, a sound carried on the wind, a sound of healing, a sound of rebirth. The galaxy might hate them still. But here with humanity, they had found something worth more than all the riches of the stars. They had found home. The fear returned in waves when the first blockade ships appeared on the edges of human space. Vast alien cruisers bearing the colors of the Dominion and their allies hung silent like vultures. They did not attack, but their presence was a threat written in metal and fire. Messages were broadcast across every channel. Send away the Ryla, or suffer the galaxy's wrath. On Earth, the Ryla panicked. Old memories rushed back. Memories of being abandoned, of being hunted, of entire fleets turning their backs on them. Many trembled in the quiet of their new homes, whispering that humanity would soon grow tired of defiance. "They will not fight for us," some said. No one ever does, but they were wrong. Humanity had already chosen. In great halls and crowded streets, human leaders stood before their people. The broadcasts carried their words to every city and every ship. "The Ryla are under our protection. If the galaxy comes to break them, they will find us standing in the way. Earth does not surrender family." The words spread like fire. Factories lit their furnaces. Shipyards worked day and night, launching hull after hull into the black. Soldiers stood ready, but not with grim faces. They carried the quiet iron resolve of a people who had known struggle all their history. They were not preparing for conquest. They were preparing to defend the ones who had come seeking mercy. Among the Ryla, disbelief gave way to tears. They saw humans paint Ryla emblems onto armor and starships, not as a mark of burden, but of pride. Children in the streets chanted songs of unity. Volunteers carried supplies to refugee towns without being asked. For every threat hurled from the stars, Earth answered with action, not retreat. Elder Jalir, who had once feared that hope itself was a lie, stood beneath the night sky and felt something stir in his chest. "They would fight the galaxy itself for us," he whispered. Savar the healer placed her clawed hand gently on his shoulder. "Not for us," she said softly. "With us." It was a truth the Ryla had never dared to dream, that they were no longer alone. The galaxy had banished them, but humanity had taken them in, not as outcasts, but as kin. And as the stars filled with the promise of conflict, one fact became clear to both Ryla and human alike. Whatever storm was coming, they would face it together. Years passed, and the Ryla grew stronger than they had ever imagined. Children who had been sickly and weak now ran through Earth's forests and cities with wings shimmering in sunlight. Families rebuilt lives that had seemed impossible. The songs of their ancestors, once muted by sorrow, now filled the streets alongside human laughter. The bond between the two peoples had become unbreakable. Humans taught the Ryla to farm the fertile soils of Earth, to craft tools and machines, and even to pilot ships designed for exploration rather than survival. In turn, the Ryla shared their knowledge of medicine, biology, and their ancient songs of the stars. Together they created a culture that was neither entirely human nor entirely Ryla, but something new, something beautiful and unshakable. Yet even as they thrived, the galaxy's judgment loomed. Embassies sent warnings, fleets lingered on the edges of solar space, and propaganda whispered across the void. "They shelter exiles," the messages said. "They defy the rules of the cosmos. They will fall." But humanity only answered with deeds. Ryla and human engineers designed fleets of their own, not for conquest, but for protection and exploration. Earth became a beacon of hope, a haven for those cast aside by other empires. Every ship that launched carried the emblem of unity. Ryla wings intertwined with Earth's rising sun. The Ryla no longer feared rejection. They walked freely through cities, their children playing alongside human ones, learning, laughing, living. Mothers and elders no longer whispered apologies for their existence. Instead, they gave blessings and taught songs that celebrated survival, friendship, and courage. On one clear night, Elder Jalir stood atop a hill overlooking the illuminated settlements. The wind carried music, laughter, and the hum of life. "We were banished," he said softly, his voice trembling with emotion. "The galaxy turned its back on us, and yet, here we stand." Savor joined him, eyes bright. "Not just here," she said. "We stand together." Humanity did not see us as weak. They welcomed us. They gave us back our home, our dignity, our hope. They changed everything. And as the stars glimmered far above, the Ryla fleet rebuilt, strengthened, and now a symbol of resilience, prepared to sail beyond Earth, carrying their knowledge, their songs, and their spirit to the rest of the galaxy. The empires that had cast them out could see their ships pass through star systems, bright and unstoppable. And they understood finally that banishment had not broken the Ryla. Humanity had made them whole. The galaxy had rejected them, but the universe had not. For wherever humanity walked, hope followed, and the Ryla had learned the most important truth of all. Even when the galaxy turns its back, a single world's courage can shine brighter than all the stars. From that day on, the Ryla and humanity faced the stars together, fearless, unshakable, and free. Their story would be told for generations, a story of exile turned into family, despair turned into triumph, and a galaxy that would never forget the power of compassion. The Ryla's message drifted through the void, carried by weak transmitters bouncing from star to star. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and still there was no answer. Silence was the only reply the galaxy gave them. Inside the Ryla fleet, life grew worse with each passing cycle. Their ships were not built for endless wandering. Supplies that once filled storage bays were now scraps measured carefully and divided into tiny rations. Families gathered in dim corridors to share a single loaf of pressed starch. Water recyclers struggled, sometimes failing, leaving entire decks thirsty. The children who once chased each other through the narrow halls with laughter now sat quietly with hollow eyes. Their wings drooped, their songs gone. Some asked their parents questions too painful to answer. Why don't they like us? Why can't we go home? Mothers and fathers tried to smile, tried to say gentle words, but behind closed doors they broke down in tears. Everywhere they turned, the Ryla met rejection. Their ships approached the trading routes of the Gaul Dominion, sending desperate signals. Instead of aid, the Dominion replied with warships. "Turn back or be destroyed," the cold voice said. They turned back. When they reached the outer colonies of the Veltari, they offered their service in exchange for food. The Veltari did not even answer. Automated turrets lit up, targeting them until they retreated into the void. Even the small nations of the stars, those who once shared drinks and trade with the Ryla, closed their doors. Some had no resources to spare. Others simply feared the anger of larger powers. Fear was stronger than compassion, and so the Ryla drifted cold and unwanted. The council met in their largest vessel, though even here the lights flickered from low power. Elder Jalir, his chiton scarred with age, spoke in a weary tone. "We have begged. We have bowed. We have offered our hands until they bled. But the galaxy has turned away." A younger counselor slammed her hand against the table. "Then why do we still try? Why do we still send messages that no one answers? Are we fools waiting for mercy in a universe that has none?" The room fell silent. No one answered because deep inside they all wondered the same. But even in their darkest despair, a few refused to let go. A healer named Savar rose from her seat. Her voice was soft but carried strength. "We continue," she said, "because if we give up, then all those who died already, all those children buried among the stars will be forgotten. We continue so their memory lives. If not for us, then for them." The council bowed their heads. They knew she was right, and so the fleet carried on, though hope was thin as paper. Their messages grew quieter, less frequent. Soon they believed their voices would vanish completely, until one day a signal came back. At first they thought it was a trick. The comms officers stared at the words on the screen, not daring to believe. A message, clear, simple, unlike the cold speeches of other powers. It read, "We hear you. You are not alone." The officers shouted for the council, who rushed to the comms chamber. Together with trembling hands, they played the rest of the transmission. "You are welcome here. Set your course for Earth, we will make room." The words were human. The voice was steady, warm, and impossibly kind. For a moment, silence fell over the room. Then one elder whispered, This cannot be real. No species speaks this way. Not in this galaxy." Some doubted. Others feared it was a trap, one more cruel joke before the end. Yet in every heart something flickered, something they had nearly lost forever. Hope. Across the fleet the news spread like fire. Mothers clutched their children, tears falling freely. The young danced in the corridors, their wings fluttering with life again. Even the sick smiled for the first time in years. For the first time since their banishment, the Ryla had a direction. Not aimless wandering, not blind searching. A course, straight to the pale blue planet of a race they barely knew. As their fleet turned its nose toward the distant sun, Elder Jalir stood at the viewing port, his old eyes wet with tears. He whispered words the Ryla would remember for generations. The galaxy shut its doors, but somewhere out there one door has opened. May it truly lead us home?